What? It's not what it looks like. Volkswagen decided that in their infinite wisdom, they were going to use a plastic clutch slave cylinder on the Volkswagen Passat gearboxes, like what's fitted to this Volkswagen T3 camper van beside me. So this is not ideal because the arrangement with the clutch pipe that goes onto the slave cylinder is not ideal, and it's now leaking. So we need to change it. I managed to get a metal brake clutch slave cylinder to replace this one with, and that's what we're going to do today. In the process, because I have to drain down some of the brake fluid, I'm going to change all the brake fluid in the van, and I'm also going to change the temperature sender on the engine because it's hard to start when it's cold, and I think the temperature sender is faulty because on the VCDS software it's showing erratic temperatures on one of the readings. So I'm going to swap that out and see if it helps the situation. How you doing, folks? I'm Ross Kelly, and this is Endfloat. I bought this Sealy suction device which says it can suck both brake fluid and engine oils and gearbox oils and stuff like that, and I'm going to use this for bleeding the brakes. So basically I'm going to just use that for putting a bit of pressure and pulling the fluid through. So I'm hoping it'll do the trick. Who knows? We'll find out soon enough. If not, I'll just have to go back to the traditional method. It goes without saying that we need to slither in underneath the van to get at the clutch slave cylinder to remove it. So in we go. Okay, so we have a cap head bolt, and we've got the hydraulic pipe which is clearly leaking. It's leaking all over the bloody place, and we removed that and the bracket, and then the clutch slave cylinder should literally just wiggle out. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually get the suction device and remove the brake fluid from the master cylinder, the reservoir, so that I don't have to drain down the whole system, and then I can set about removing the hydraulic pipes. It's been a while since this van has had fresh brake fluid, so it's definitely a job that's a bit on the overdue side. I think it's every 3 years you're supposed to do it, 2 or 3 years anyway. Dot 5 never needs to be replaced in theory, but yeah, anyway. Now let's see how the sucky star works. Oh, how cool is that? That is just a business. And look at the shite that's in there. Definitely needs a doing. Okay, so now that the brake fluid reservoir is empty, I'm going to crack the lines for the clutch slave cylinder and let the last of the fluid drain out. You might be wondering why I drained it out. Well, it saves me having to pinch the line, and if I'm going to be replacing all the fluid anyway, I may as well do it this way. There's still going to be fluid in the brake lines, so that's not really going to cause a huge amount of headache for me when it comes to bleeding the brakes. Okay, so you can see the old slave cylinder compared to the new one here, and obviously the new one being metal, it's going to be stronger. The only thing that's going to give me a headache now is that I have a female pipe on the van, and the fitting on the new slave cylinder is also female, which is annoying. So it means I need to get a male-to-male straight union in order to join the two. So that means a trip to the motor factors. The other thing as well, by the way, that happened is the tang broke off the old plastic slave cylinder. That's because it's made of epoxy plastic. It wouldn't have broke off if it was made of metal in the first instance. So anyway, right, that's not a major issue because it's going in the bin anyway, so it really doesn't matter. But yeah, the next headache, as I said, is just to get a straight male to male union, and that will allow us to connect our pipe up to the fitting on the van, and the job's a good one then. We can just pop it back in and it should work. It's one of those things people just don't seem to carry as a male-to-male brake pipe joiner. So what I'm going to do is the flexible pipe that actually went down to the brake pipe or to the clutch slave cylinder, it was actually an add-on when I did the engine conversion. The van wouldn't originally have had a flexible section going down to the clutch slave. So what's on the other end is actually a male fitting. So I'm going to see if I can bend the van's original pipe into position to go on to the clutch slave cylinder. So wish me luck. If it breaks, I'll eat my feckin' Mickey is what'll happen. Actually, there's loads of the whole thing is flexible. That's grand. Right, we'll be able to make that work. Okay, now where's my spanners? We'll get that off. Alright, so I got it off anyway, so yeah, it's like a plastic pipe that goes down to it, so that's grand, so it actually is flexible. And there's plenty of leeway there to get onto the new slave cylinder, which is fantastic. So we'll start getting the new slave cylinder into position. Now there is an NB here. I have to bleed the clutch slave cylinder before I fit it because the gearbox is upside down, so therefore the clutch slave cylinder is upside down, meaning the bleed nipple is on the bottom rather than the top, meaning it's on the top, so above the actual, it's below. I'll have a look, you'll see what I mean. You have to bleed it before you put it on, basically. Okay, so I did the sensible thing and banged my head off the tow bar when I was getting out from under the van, and I also did the sensible thing and just made sure that the clutch slave, the new slave cylinder fits before I go and bleed it, because that would really puncture my wheelchair now altogether if I was to fit it and find it bleed it and find out it doesn't bloody fit. But that would be the end float way, folks, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it just? Anyway, right, so we're going to just literally thread this on, fill the reservoir, open the bleed screw, bish bash bosh, thanks very much, good luck to you. Okay, so that's the union nipped up, so now I can crack off the bleed nipple and fill the reservoir. Right, so we bleed it like that, okay, with the bleed nipple at the top, let the stuff out, close it again, flip it over and install it, and that should be that. Okay, so the reservoir is now full, right? So the next thing I'm going to do is I'll put this suction device onto the clutch slave cylinder and I'm going to put a pressure on it. And I pull. So now we're keeping a pressure on that, and that should get the fluid moving through the system and get our clutch blade. I can hear it coming through, so it's doing something. Okay, it's starting to drip. So now we'll do it again and we'll make sure there's no air coming out. Yeah, there's air coming out, air coming out, air coming out. It's working a treat. It's a hell of a lot faster way of doing it as well. I'm just thinking that it may be sucking air in around the edge of the fitting, so we don't want to have it too undone. Okay, so everything's buttoned up now, so let's have a look and see if we've got a clutch at least. We can top up our fluid and then do the brakes. Not only have we got a clutch, but it feels brilliant. It feels so much nicer. Wow, that's fantastic. Of course, I'm only assuming it works. I'm going to have to take it out for a drive. But, well, I mean, I could start it and see if it... Once I put it back on its wheels, I'll try it and see, because I don't want to try and do it with it up on the axle stands. Yeah, no, I will actually, because it'll just the power will go through the diff to the wheel that's off the ground. So yeah, we'll do that anyway and see how it goes. I know I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but before I start it, let's change that temperature sender as well, because I want to see how the cold starting is, and I don't want to start the engine and heat it up at all before doing that. I know I did start the engine a good while ago to move the van into the position it's in now, but yeah, we'll do that. As is always the way, the offending article is a little bit buried. It would be an easy thing to get at if it wasn't for the fact that well, this is certainly not a standard engine to be in this van. So yeah. Okay, first thing to do, take the electrical connector off it. Just two little prongs either side. Oh, come on. There's different types of temperature senders in these. This is a 4-pin one, but there are different versions of that. So there's that out. Now there's a little plastic spring clip type thing that needs to be removed. Just grab hold of it with the pliers and pull it off. You can expect to lose a little bit of coolant in this process, but it'll make its way out eventually, or back to the top of the air will make its way out. I mean, or back to the top of the expansion bottle at the very least. Now, annoyingly, the new sensor didn't come with an O-ring, but what I'll do is I'll reuse that O-ring. I just need to get a little bit of some sort of compound to put on it just to give it an extra bit of sealing ability. Okay, so here's the new one, 4 prongs. Basically, that's it. Kind of annoyingly, because it doesn't have the O-ring, I can't put the new O-ring on and have it ready to pop in as soon as I get the old one out. But you know what? If I actually take off the breather, I'll be able to get much better access to that. And at least, yeah, I'll do that actually. It'll only take me a minute. Come on, get out. There we go. Excuse you. Shit on it. More coolant is coming out than I was expecting, and the O-ring didn't come out, which was kind of irritating. Alright, well, that's the new one in anyway. Alright, so that's the little plastic spring clip that holds it in. Literally just goes into 2 slots on either side of the housing that the whole sensor goes into. Simple but effective. Yeah, it's in now. I suppose it's kind of good in a way that the O-ring didn't come out, because at least it stayed sealed in there. Alright, so that's that. Next thing, put the electrical connector back on. That's that. Breather back on. Fish it down through there. And there's another one, a metal version of that type of clip that holds the breather in place. Alright, so there we go, there you are. Let's get the keys into the ignition and see if that made any difference whatsoever. No, my luck, it'd probably blow up my bloody face. Now, right, she's out of gear. We'll be checking the clutch in the process, so sit in. Alright, so what I wanted to do is just go and then start. So let's see. Bugger. Oh, I'll never get to the bottom of that bloody problem. Well, it's not okay. So it wasn't the temperature gauge anyway, or the temperature sender. Of course, that's not to say it's not the actual wiring for said temperature sender. Started all right there. I think it's actually just air is getting into the fuel system. That's my next port of call. Right, so let's see how the clutch is operating. You get into gear. Bite is halfway up the pedal. Lovely. Okay, so we have a clutch. Great, that's that sorted. So the last thing to do now, after sorting out the clutch and replacing the temperature sender needlessly, but I'll keep the old one anyway, so at least I have a spare, is to bleed the brakes. So I'm going to start at the back and work my way forward, and I'm going to use that suction device to suck through any air that may have gotten itself into the system, and hopefully that will do the trick. So yeah, let's get stuck in. course you can do this job without taking the wheel off, but why would you when it takes 2 seconds to do? Of course, if you don't have an impact gun, you might want to do it that way. Okay, so it's a 7mm spanner on the bleed nipple, so I'm going to crack it loose first of all. I'll get my little sucky star onto it. And I'm going to put a bit of pressure on. The air coming out anyway. Again, I would question whether or not that air is actually coming in around the threads of the bleed nipple rather than the actual brake lines. And herein lies the reason why those suction devices for bleeding brakes might not be the best investment. All right, so we'll do that one more time. Yeah, there's no doubt it's definitely sucking air in around the bleed nipple. So yeah, I won't be investing in one of those suction bleeders that you can get, because I just don't see the point if that's all that's going to happen. I'm going to try and get a bit more out of that though. I didn't get much brake fluid out of there. You know what, folks? Say what you want about my sometimes unconventional methods, but this one worked. I'm really happy with how that shaped up. So the brakes are all fine now, new fluid right the way through the system, and the clutch is 100% as well, so that's grand. Unfortunately, I didn't sort out the issue with the starting, so I'm going to have one look at one thing. I'm going to just crank it over and see if there's any air coming through. Actually, I can have a look now and see. There's a clear fuel line. I'll see if there's any air getting pulled through. That's the clear fuel line that's coming to the pump over here. And we'll have a look and see. There's no leaks, no sign of any air bubbles coming through there or anything like that. So that's not the issue either. I don't know. Anyway, look, it's just going to be one of those things I'll probably just have to put up with. It does start. You know, it shouldn't even need the glow plugs to start, but yeah, it's one of those things that could just drive me mental trying to fix or trying to chase down, so I'm not even going to waste my time, to be honest with you. Now I have the brakes and clutch and everything like that sorted out, and have a more permanent solution for the clutch slave cylinder. The way I had it done was only ever temporary, to be honest with you. It was one of those things I needed to revisit, and I knew I was going to have to revisit. So yeah, let's leave it there, folks. I'm going to take the van out for a bit of a run. I think I'll take it into work tomorrow and see how it drives, and it could do with having the cobwebs blown off it. So sounds like a plan. Depends on how much diesel's in it. Half a tank, that'll do us. Anyway, look, thanks for watching, folks, and I'll chat to you soon. Please do click subscribe if you enjoy watching my videos, because it does help support the channel and help it grow. So it doesn't cost you anything, helps me a lot, and I really do appreciate it. So thanks for watching, and I'll chat to you soon.